welcome back to cooking. Today we are doing a nice warm breakfast. We're doing a zucchini egg bake. And we're going to talk about a lot of different substitutes. It doesn't even have to be a zucchini egg bake if you can't find a zucchini. So before we get started, of course, if you're following along to cook at home, go wash up, do those happy birthdays. Make sure you get in between your fingers, inside all of your crevices in your hand. Make sure your fingernails are completely clean. And come on back here. We're going to go through our ingredients. Always the plan. You don't want to get to the end and find out that you have forgotten a couple of the keys. We'll go through the ingredients, go through the directions, just so that you kind of have an idea of what we're doing, because then it goes faster all the way through. And just like this, you can prep your ingredients, prep all of the utensils that you need so that you're not walking around with eggs on your fingers trying to find, a fork. So it's really great to have everything up and going, and it really does make that cooking process a lot more fun. All right, so for our zucchini egg bake, we need some zucchini, of course. So what if you don't have zucchini? What if you get to the store and your zucchini is not shiny like this? It has a whole lot of indents in it that look a little moldy. I have been there. That is not a good zucchini. That means that it is past its time of being great. It's starting to get older. It's starting to grow mold because every single minute, all of our food is alive. So it just keeps ripening. So if you see some indents, you see a little white puffy stuff growing, that's mold growing on the zucchini. And so that's not a great one to start with. But if you have one in the back of your fridge and you find it and there's a little mold on it, wash it off, cut out those bad spots. If it's just superficial, it won't have penetrated in and you can still use it. But what happens if you get to the grocery store, you don't see any zucchini there because the shipment didn't come in, or you're at home and you want to make this and you don't have any zucchini? But say you have a pepper. Say you've got a pepper, any color at all, doesn't have to be red. Remember, peppers are pepper. They all taste similar, except the green. It's a little more bitter just because it's less ripe than the other colors. Say you have a pepper. So you could substitute pepper for zucchini or a carrot. You could grate up really fine a carrot because we are going to cook this first so that those vegetables are nice and soft to go with the egg, because it's not a long time for cooking. So you wouldn't be able to get the vegetables all cooked if we didn't pre-cook them. So really you can add anything to it. One of my favorites, you know what that would be? It would be a pepper, it would be onion, and it would be mushrooms. That would be a favorite of mine. But you know what? It can be whatever you have in the freezer. If you've got green peas and broccoli and carrots and cauliflower in the freezer, go for it. Throw those together. And of course, the more colors, the more nutritious. So today we do have zucchini that we're going to deal with. Marianne's nicely chopped up all of our onions already. From the garden, you guys also actually have some garlic bulbs in here, some little cloves. So I'm going to put those back in the freezer so that they don't fully thaw, but we've pulled out a couple. These are a really great way to preserve your garlic. Just like everything else, if garlic's on the countertop, it's going to continue to ripen, and garlic, when it continues to ripen, gets dry, really dry. And then you push against those bulbs and all those little pieces, and there's a lot of space in there. They don't have the flavor. It's not going to be tasty. It's going to be super dry. So you peel them, you bag them, you label them, and you throw them in your freezer. Maybe just having a little box in the freezer of things like that. So any fresh herbs that you're going to freeze because you didn't use them all, any garlic, ginger is a really great one. You put it in there, you peel it first, put it in a little Ziploc. Having a little bag means they won't get lost in the freezer all over, and then you can pull them out and you have this instant variety of great things to be able to use and to add flavor to whatever dish. But the big thing is then you have to use it. So kind of plan that time, maybe once a month, where you're going through your freezer and you're kind of picking out stuff, making sure that it doesn't get freezer burnt. So we are down. Oh yeah, so Marianne has found in our freezer, we've got some already chopped spinach. Now, what I like about these products now is that they've already come divided into two. I believe, now don't quote me and I've never tested this, but I think a package like this is a whole large bin of baby spinach fresh. That's amazing. So when it comes in two, then you can pull out one, throw the rest back in the freezer, thaw that out. You know, it might take a little bit of time to thaw it out, or you can throw it in the in a pot, like a frying pan, and then kind of thaw it out under there. Yeah, you could put it in a Ziploc bag, close it up, and then set it in some hot water in this sink, and that thaws out really nicely. But those are really great to have on hand because it's instant spinach that's not gone wilted. You don't have to pick through it, and it's super good for us. And remember, spinach is the best for us when it's already cooked, just because our body can absorb a lot more of that iron out of it because of the form it is after it's cooked. All right, so then we have a 1/4 cup of butter. We have some eggs, and then of course our spices. If you don't have these spices, use salt and pepper or nothing at all. These vegetables are going to add a good flavor on their own, especially the cheeses. So we have some dried parsley, we have some basil, Parmesan, and shredded, we have old, thank you. So we have the old cheese. So it in itself is going to be a little bit more flavorful. Whenever you can buy old for cooking versus just the regular cheddar, you're doing yourself a favor as far as flavor goes. And then of course, we're just going to add a little bit of salt. Salt enhances flavor as well. And our whole body actually works on the sodium potassium pump. That's how our cells get vitamins in and out, is having enough salt. So we do, I know even if you're on low blood pressure meds, we do have to have some salt in our meal plan. But if you eat any convenience foods, the salt is already there. So you don't have to add a whole lot of extra. All right, so you can also use fresh herbs if you're doing this in the summertime, or you're growing some fresh herbs at home on your countertop. You can use those. Just use about 3 times the amount because the dried is more concentrated, but the fresh, you have water in it. So you just have to use a little bit more. Awesome. So the directions, what are we doing? So I have already turned the oven on to 350. That always takes a while to heat up. And then we're going to cook our veggies. So in the skillet, we're going to melt our butter, add our zucchini and onion, and then our garlic. Now, I don't like to add garlic at the same time because it's sticky, right? That allicin, that really good for us component, it starts to stick to the bottom of the frying pan. So I like to cook the onions. Now, we're not trying to brown them. We're not trying to caramelize them. If you want to, go for it. But it's only like a 5 or 6 minute cook. We're just trying to soften them so that they can go and finish cooking while in with the eggs. So we're going to put them in there, add the garlic at the end. And then in the meantime, while they're cooking, we can whisk together all the eggs into a bowl. Now remember, when we're cracking the eggs, one at a time, we're going to crack them into a bowl so that we can look for any shells. You don't want to be surprised by crunching on something in the middle of your cooked dish. We're going to whisk those eggs up, add all of our herbs, add our Parmesan cheese and our salt, and then we're going to stir all of that mixture into, with the veggies, we're going to stir that into a sprayed 9x9. So the smaller it is, right, the thicker it's going to be, the longer it's going to take to cook. If you wanted this super quick, I would just throw the eggs. You have your vegetables in the fry pan, whip your eggs up, put your spices, throw the eggs on top of the vegetables in the fry pan, and then in 2 minutes, you've got your meal, right? So this is if you want to bake it and have it for a meal with other people maybe. So then after the 9x9, we're going to put it in the oven. We're going to cook it for about 20 to 25 minutes. It's going to puff up. It's going to be beautiful. And then it's going to flatten a little bit because eggs don't have any baking soda or gluten to hold them in the standing position. So they're going to flatten right down. And then you can sprinkle any other cheese on top if you save some, and then you're good to go. So that is what we're doing today. So let's get started. So I'm going to turn on my skillet, get it warmed up. I'll add the butter here. And then we'll take you over there in a minute. I just wanted to show you just kind of how you prep a zucchini for this. So a zucchini is different. A lot of people say, well, how do I tell the difference between a zucchini and a cucumber? Oftentimes they look the same. And you're right, those English cucumbers, a little bit longer typically, but maybe not always. But this zucchini, as you can tell, Zucchinis have little white spots on them. You can see as I'm rolling that around. Cucumbers do not. They don't have those white spots. Their skin is quite a bit thicker, especially field cucumbers. But the main way to tell is the stem. So cucumbers grow on a big long vine, but their stem is really skinny. Zucchini stem is quite thick. So if you see a thick stem, then you know that you've got a zucchini. Now, because their skin is thin, you never have to peel the skin. So when you're making zucchini muffins, zucchini bread, you're putting in meals, you're roasting it, leave the skin on. Of course, we know where is a lot of the vitamins and minerals right in the skin. So you're just going to cut a little bit off just so that you get that stem off. I'm not sure we're going to use up this whole thing. We only need 3 cups. Marianne's done most of that work for us. But then you just get a grater. You can get a cheese grater or just a little hand grater. And it's so easy because you've left the skin on, right? All you're having to do is just go down this grater. And it's very watery. The content of these zucchinis is quite high in water. So if you go to freeze a zucchini, because you're not going to use it, typically it'll be quite full of liquid when you go to thaw it. So if you're going to use it in a muffin, you're going to want to dump that water out, possibly even squeeze that zucchini out just to make sure that it's not going to be too watery for your recipe. You don't want to have it really, like a pancake mix when you're trying to make a muffin. That's not good. So we're looking for 3 cups of zucchini. I forgot to measure. So a cup we know is about the size of our fist. So that's what I'm going by. And I do find that about 1 zucchini this size is about 2 cups. Just like anything, when you go to shred something, it really multiplies in size because you're adding a lot of space and air to it. So I'm thinking that's about another cup right there. So now Marianne can decide what she wants to do with this zucchini, right? You can finish grating that and then store that in the freezer. Or if there's a recipe coming up and you're gonna, add it to a soup just as a bonus, go for it. If you're going to add it to like a banana muffin recipe, nobody will ever know that you have zucchini in there. You just have a vegetable. Oh yes, great idea. You can use zucchini slices, is that what you're thinking? As a way to get the dip to your mouth instead of always chips. Now, the flavor of zucchini, if you've never had it before, is a lot more mild than the cucumber. Cucumber is a lot crunchier. The zucchini is a lot more soft. So that is the difference. All right, so we are going to throw this on over into our skillets. We've got our butter melted. And I had it on high, so you might just hear that great sizzle. Oh yeah, there it is already. We love that. It means that it's nice and warm. Now I turned it on to a medium high to warm it up. I just turned it down to a medium to start to cook these, because if you leave it on a medium high, you're going to caramelize them and they're going to turn a little brown. Now that's totally fine. But I think today we just want to cook them and make them soft. So I think, because we got a lot of onions in there, I think I'm just going to leave the onions, let them cook. I might set my timer for about 4 minutes. And then once those onions are cooked a little bit, I might stir them in between. Then I'll add the zucchini after that. And then right at the end, the last minute, I will add the garlic. So we can go back over and start cracking our eggs. We are going to use 6 eggs, and we're going to crack them one at a time into our bowl. Save that cheese for later. Now I do like, if you have a see-through bowl, that's really great when you crack the eggs into, because then you can look on the bottom and see if you have any shells. Now there's a couple of ways to crack eggs. You can see back here, I guess. So the best method is never on a surface that's thin, always on a flat surface, because then you don't get those little shells in there. And your goal is just a one-time hit to open it up. There you go. So even on the part that you hit on that hard countertop, you can see there's little tiny bits of shell. So you don't want to do that on the side of a bowl that you're using because then those shells are going to get in there. So now you have this nice indent right there, and the indent shows that you've cracked it to the membrane, but there's nothing coming out, so the membrane's still intact. So you want to use both of your thumbs, push them in and down and together and pull apart, open it up, and then dump it. There you go. And you want to make sure you get all those egg whites out. And then you look and see, and we're all clear. So you do that a couple of times. Now, if you don't get it fully cracked the first time, and you might find this with like a farm fresh egg, that if you just crack it a little bit and you're like, oh, you can crack it a second time, but just you might want to be super close to your bowl because it might be open more than you think. There we go. So what's a serving of an egg? It's 2 eggs. So you want to make sure that when you're having a good meal and you're wanting to start the day with a good amount of protein, that you're adding 2 eggs into your omelet, making sure that you're going to start off with both the protein, which is the white part, and then the yellow part is vitamins, minerals, and cholesterol. So our body does need a certain amount of cholesterol. Even if you have high cholesterol, you can still have 6 eggs a week. So that's fantastic. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Last one. I'm just going to show you the fancy way to do it. You crack it once and you open it with one hand. I don't know if that's going to, oh, it might work. You pull it apart and you make a bit of a mess. But we are shell free. There you go. So we've got our eggs ready to go. And I'm going to put our herbs in. Now, I'll just show you that. So do know that when you're cracking eggs, it's not a complete unmessy project. So either you're going to wipe your countertop first before you do anything else, because if you don't, then you're going to get all that egg white on everything else. So, or you do it on a cutting board and you can just move it. So let's add our spices. Now I just peeked at our onions and they're doing good. They need a few more minutes to soften. We still have 2 minutes on the timer. So 1/4 teaspoon of our parsley. Grabbing the right herb is the right thing to do. So now if you really like parsley, and I really do, you can add a lot more than 1/4 teaspoon. It's true, it does have a strong flavor, and the more fresh you get your herbs, like say you did your own, you grew your own, you dried your own, those might have even more of a flavor, which is really great. And this recipe person that created this recipe really likes basil because there's 1.5 teaspoons of the basil. Now this, you don't have to make sure it's perfectly straight across. You know, sometimes when we're doing baking soda, baking powder in muffins and cookies, we want to make sure that it's straight across, and so you're using a knife and you're getting all particular, but those are just herbs and we're okay. There's our timer. So I'm just going to give these a stir. They're getting soft. A few of them are browning, but that's not the goal, and they are looking nice and soft. So let's add in our zucchini. Set that for a couple more minutes, and it's good to spread that out. Mix that up. If it doesn't touch the bottom, then it's going to take a longer time to soften up. Remember, our goal isn't to fully cook. We're just wanting to soften it up a little bit. And with this zucchini, because it is so watery, we are looking to cook it to evaporate some of the water out of it so that it doesn't make the eggs quite runny like it would if we put fresh zucchini in. All right, so I'm going to set that timer again for another maybe 3 minutes, and then we'll add our garlic after that. Oh, we've got this Parmesan cheese. Now you can use whatever kind of Parmesan you got. This is just the amount that was needed when we bought it the first time, but you can get those large Kraft tubs, those green ones. That's the stinky cheese, people call it. So you can use that. I do find this type of fresh stuff, it tastes a little bit stronger. Do you need this for anything else? So there's just a little bit more than 2 tablespoons in there, but too much cheese is not a bad thing, is it? So I'll just show you what this one was. So it's the Parmesan Reggiano. Wish I was Italian. But it's fresh, so it's going to taste a little bit better than those dried ones that you get on the shelf. That one needs to stay in the fridge versus the Kraft can stay on the countertop until you open it, then it needs to stay in the fridge. All right, add a little bit of salt. Again, the worst method of measuring salt. We just need to put it into a container. I'm not sure why we haven't yet. There we go. And I'm gonna whip this up. We won't put the cheese in quite yet because we need to whip that up. If I can grab that whisk, thank you, ma'am. So the goal of whipping this up is to break apart all of those egg yolks. Hard to see and tip a bowl at the same time. Mixture right together all those herbs so they're not in a clump. Now the more air you whip into it, the more it's going to expand when it cooks, but it'll always fall to the same size, so it doesn't really matter much. But it's always fun to just kind of whip it around. All right, so it's about time to add our garlic. So remember, this garlic was in the freezers, so it's out and it's thawed, so it's gonna be quite a bit limpier than a fresh garlic, but that's okay. The flavor is still in it. So you can chop it up totally fine. I like to grate it on a grater because, I don't know, getting a great big piece of garlic in my mouth in a recipe isn't one of my favorites. But if you love garlic, then feel free to just chop it into big chunks and add it in. This way, everything in the end is all going to be the same size and it's going to be the same shape. So the end, you can see, gets a little bit dry. So, whoops, you won't be able to grate up that end, but everything else is perfect. And if you really like garlic, or it's cold and flu season and you like garlic and you want to eat a little bit more to help your immune system to get a little bit stronger and fight off all those bugs that are out there, feel free to eat more garlic. Roasted garlic is phenomenal. If you put it in with your roasted vegetables, just the whole clove, you put some oil on it, then just let it cook, and then you can enjoy a clove every single day, is what I've been told. All right, so we're just going to take this right over. It's nice and sticky. So we're going to put it right into our pan on top of our zucchini. We're going to mix it up, and then it won't get too sticky because we're going to keep mixing it. Now, if you don't have any fresh garlic and you have some dried garlic, feel free to use that. Hey, perfect timing. It's not going to be as potent of an immune system booster just because it's been dried and it's a little bit older, but better than nothing. Awesome. So that was a great time. So that 3 minutes there, it kept the zucchini from sticking, so it wasn't too long on medium temperature. Kept it from sticking, but it cooked it down a little bit. You can see it's quite a bit limpier than before. I'll turn it up a little bit. Right? Right. Then the cucumber? Or just in itself is bright?
That it's cooked just like broccoli, you know. It's a brighter green one.
That's true. It is a lovely color. So, you know, having this in with some red pepper, some white cauliflower would be a lovely color complement when you're doing a breakfast like this. Excellent. So we are good to go. So we're just going to add this to our egg mixture. Now, remember, if you wanted to have breakfast in 2 minutes, all you need to do is to dump this in. The other way we're going to do it is to put it in 9x9 so that we can put the 9x9 in the fridge, have leftovers for later. Either option is awesome. Let's not forget about our cheese. That would be a sad day. And we just have to spray our pan. Now, if you don't have spray, spray's just quick. If you don't have spray, put some oil in there with some saran wrap or paper towel and just wipe it around. That works as well. Excellent. So now what we don't want to have happen is this be so hot that you add the eggs to it and the eggs start to cook in the pan. So we're not going to add the eggs to this. We're going to take the zucchini out and we're going to add it to the bowl. And then we'll be sure that the eggs don't cook already, because then you'll get clumps of cooked egg as you pour it into your dish instead of just like the omelet, right? A nice flat dish. There we go. Perfect. Yes, you worked so hard to get all of this in here that you want to make sure that you're cleaning your pan out, that you're leaving nothing behind. Even though it just looks like a little bit, and this one cleaned out pretty good, it actually is pretty good to have it nicely cleaned out. And then there's nothing much left to wash. I guess we have to put that on a hot pad. There we go. So we're just going to mix this around and see we've got some great green color in there. And then the herbs even more. I come a little bit closer. You can see that steam flying. It's getting a little bit hot actually. So let's pour it right in our pan. Now if you had forgot to grease the pan, you're just going to have a stronger knife when you're getting it out, because it will be pretty sticky. Egg sticks really well. Thank you, ma'am. So you could also do this into muffin cups. You could divide those eggs into 6 muffin cups and then add all of these vegetables, little bits into each muffin cup, and then you would know that actually you have to put 1 egg, I think, in a muffin cup, or else it's going to explode. So then you would have 12, and then you could divide this over and then put your cheese on top. I almost forgot the cheese. I think. Let's save some for later. I don't think the recipe says that, but I like the idea of being able to sprinkle the cheese on the top, and then the heat of it is going to melt that cheese in there. So there we go. I'm going to put this in the oven. We're going to set the timer for 20 minutes, and then we'll call you back. Remember about the oven too. You don't want to burn your eyebrows off, so you open it, count to 3, and then you can stick this in. Middle shelf, not right at the front. You want the air to circulate all the way around, so the middle of the middle shelf. And watch as we open that up, count to 3, and stick that in. And you always want to have a preheated oven. If you don't have a preheated oven, then the heat that comes from the bottom is going to cook that bottom faster, and then typically you do get a burnt bottom and then an uncooked or just then cooked top. So preheated oven, then it'll cook all the way through. Meet you back here in 20. Perfect. So the timer went on our egg bake. Let's check it out. Remember, 1, 2, 3. Oh, beautiful masterpiece. Look at that. I think it's done. We have it crispy around the edge, browned up. It's puffed all the way through. If there was still an indent in the middle, you would want to leave it in for a few more minutes to finish that cooking. Now, a glass container is going to keep the heat in it longer than a metal one. So if it wasn't fully cooked and say you had to run out and you do take it out, just leave it on the stovetop because it's going to be warmer in the glass dish, and then it'll finish cooking. We saved some cheese for the end, so now we get to finalize that with a little cheese on top. We'll wait for a few minutes and then that will all be melted. So there you have it. We have a zucchini egg bake.